Today I have something very exciting to play with. Opposec is a name that you may not have heard before, but he's someone that I think is very, very cool. Every now and again, back in the day, I would run these little redstone competitions where I would give the community something that I wanted to see built, and then people would construct it. And Opposec consistently submitted really impressive ones. One of my personal favourites was this self-building 4x4 vault door. I mean, it's bonkers. So I've been subscribed to him since then. He's always working on cool redstone contraptions and things, but the other day he released a video that got me extremely excited because he's been working on a mod that introduces SCULK sensors into the game so we can play with them before the snapshots actually release. And he has very kindly given me a preview version of this mod. So here it is. Look, you can see I'm doing SCULK sensory things. Now, as I say, I'm playing in a preview, but the full release is coming very, very soon. In fact, when you're watching this, it might actually already be out because it's coming on Monday, the 12th of October. I'll put all of the details down in the description so that you can play with them yourselves. But for now, let's crack on with some initial experimentation. Now, just to make it very clear, don't expect to see anything particularly groundbreaking in this video. This is just going to be me learning how these things actually function. Okay. So, I've kind of created a weird wireless redstone clock. These things are strange. So I've been playing around with the wool occlusion, trying to work out how we actually block signals. And I think I have it sussed. So the way that you do it is you actually block off where the sound is coming from. I always thought that you would surround the actual SCULK sensor itself to stop it receiving signals, but no, you kind of want to stop the sound, from being sent. At least that's how it works in this mod. So if I give you an example right here, I'm trying to send a redstone signal through this line and make it end up over there without causing any redstone clocks, which is actually a little bit of a challenge. You see, if I remove one of these blocks right here, the sound from this trapdoor is then going to feed back into this original SCULK sensor, and then we'll get ourselves a loop happening, where we're basically sending a sound backwards to the SCULK sensor, so we need this wool occlusion right here to stop that signal from being sent back towards the original SCULK sensor. Now, one thing that I think could potentially be helpful, just off the top of my head, is the idea that a comparator can give a signal strength dependent on how strong the sound is. So say, for example, the sound comes from right next to the SCULK sensor, it would give a really strong output, whereas if it comes from far away, then it will be a much weaker output. Then using something like a comparator signal strength detector, you can make it so that the SCULK sensor only gives an output when a sound is played from a certain band of blocks around the SCULK sensor. So you wouldn't get an output from here, you wouldn't get an output from over here, but instead you would only get an output if the sound comes from within this band. I don't know how useful that is, but it feels like it will be useful. Now that I kind of understand how these things function, I think it's time we actually put them into some useful redstone contraptions. And if you're anything like me, the first thing you thought when you saw the SCULK sensor was, that's going to make for some incredible undetectable traps. I mean, if this floor wasn't made of glass, you would have no idea that that SCULK sensor was under there. I mean, this is almost a little bit too cruel, isn't it? You walk onto the glass and... oh my goodness. Oh no! What have Mojang done? That is so brutal. That is so brutal. This is all it takes to ruin someone's day. Just this tiny little setup here, it will detect anything. So I thought it would be smart to get a feel for the rough detection zone of a SCULK sensor that is one block underneath the ground. And this seems to be the area that it can detect in. Now that's a pretty big distance, isn't it? I mean, if you had these all surrounding your base, you could cover a large amount of area and have a really strong alarm system. And by that, of course, I mean an alarm system that sets you on fire immediately. Something like this should hopefully do the trick. So I walk inside the detection zone, and that is... that's quite powerful. And then, once I've died, the system obviously knows that I've died because it stops detecting sounds and it switches itself off. Oh no, this is so brutal. I mean, look at this. That is just... I'm lost for words. But it's awesome. It's awesome. In an evil way. In a really evil way. Okay, let's move away from traps before I get myself too carried away. Don't worry, I'm sure I will do plenty more traps in the future. I mean, I can definitely feel a dedicated video coming along. What I want to work on next is farms. I'm thinking that the SCULK sensor definitely has some interesting uses in the worlds of farms because, of course, it can detect the sound of things growing, which means that we wouldn't, in theory, have to use an observer to detect growth directly. We could detect growth of something like sugarcane from afar, and that could trigger the farm. I mean, I'm curious to see how this could work, and it turns out it works really well. So I know that this farm is not exactly revolutionary, but the concept is there. You can see that the sugarcane grows, the SCULK sensor hears that happening, and it fires the farm, allowing the pistons to shoot out, and then our sugarcane be collected. And the pistons shoot out really quickly. We've got them on a stable circuit, so that means that all the sounds happen within the SCULK sensor's kind of powered on time, which means that we don't run into redstone clock issues. Except one thing that I hadn't really accounted for is that it doesn't make a sound when sugarcane grows. So it doesn't work. Well, that's a bummer. What about something like bamboo? Nope. No noise here either. Okay, so farming's out of the question. What about pressure plates? Or should I say lack of pressure plates? Because in theory with the SCULK sensor, we shouldn't actually need to use pressure plates for our piston doors anymore, which could lead to some pretty interesting designs. That actually works. And it works really well. Oh my goodness, that's the coolest thing ever. So we've got a SCULK sensor up at the top there that is detecting me walking up to the door, and it is opening it and then closing it behind me. I think I'm in love. I mean, after over 10 years of Minecraft and probably as many years of pistons, the 2x2 piston door, it was always assumed, could not get any smaller, and yet here we are, in 2020, creating new designs for tiny 2x2 piston doors. I mean, it can get even smaller, as long as you don't mind having a SCULK sensor in your roof. Look at this! Look at this! It doesn't even look like there's anything on the top! That is awesome! This is seriously cool. I'm getting really excited right now. Look at it. Look at it. I can't get over this. You know, I was impressed by all the other stuff, but this is really selling it for me. I've just come up with an idea for something that I think is a little bit silly, but also incredibly cool. When I first started making redstone videos on YouTube, some of my favorite redstone contraptions were disco lighting systems, and this is like the ultimate disco lighting system. It's a pathway that lights up as I walk along it. Look at this. So it's almost like those energy saving corridors, you know, you go down them and they kind of switch on as you walk through them, and they're absolutely terrifying. Well, now we can have that experience in Minecraft, and that makes me happy. What I will say is though, if the energy saving corridors made this sound as I was walking down them, I don't know if I'd walk down them too often. I mean, it's literally like I'm walking through 6 feet of sludge. This is definitely an interesting concept that could do with a little bit of refining. So here we have a little wireless piston elevator, so you can see that our piston extends, that then sends a sound up towards the next SCULK sensor, which then activates the next segment of the elevator. Now, in my head, that was going to be really easy, but then of course that also sends a sound back down to the original SCULK sensor, and once again you get a loop being created. So that is why I've had to add in this little piece of the circuit. So we've got a wall block that pushes across underneath our piston, and then we also have these 2 wall blocks here, which block the sound of these pistons. But all in combination, it does actually seem to work. The only thing that you have to be careful of is you have to hold shift while you're on top of the slime block. But it does work, at least these 2 modules do. Now I have to say, I'm very curious to see what happens when I start adding in more modules. I imagine things are going to go south quite quickly, but, you know, I do have hope. 3, 2, 1, go! Almost! I mean, the idea is there. I think with some refinement, this could actually function, but then after all the refinement, there's a chance that just a regular piston elevator might be easier to build. In fact, that's probably the case. Next up, we have a little hidden combination lock. So the idea that I've come up with is that you run over to a spot in a room and it's going to send a signal to various different SCULK sensors that you have dotted around like this. And you need to get the correct combination of areas to be able to access wherever you want to access. Now this right here is an incredibly crude example, but it's just a proof of concept. Let's see if I can activate this thing first time. So I run around, I activate all of these, and then I drop through my trapdoor. So there we go. So we had to stand on various different blocks in the correct order, at the right pacing as well, and that will open up the trapdoor. And I've got to say, once you get good at it, is actually pretty satisfying. You may be able to hear the slight tension in my voice because I'm not particularly good at it. Alright, it's a real struggle. Oh, I've just thought of a farming related thing that will actually work. Give me a second. Give me a second. Just one more second. Here we are. So here we have a witch spawning platform. If a witch pops in here... Yes! That actually worked exactly how I was expecting it to. They can't help themselves. They make noise. And instantly... they get detected by our SCULK sensor right here, which will activate the farm and make them drop through. That is cool. And of course, that isn't just limited to witch farms. You could make use of that functionality in generalized mob farms and all sorts of other farms that involve things making noises. What I really like about the SCULK sensor and what I really like about Mojang in general is that it's come out of nowhere and it's forced me to think in a completely different way from what I'm used to when it comes to building up redstone contraptions. What I think Minecraft updates do incredibly well is the introduction of unique features, and the SCULK sensor is definitely unique. You know, I am scratching the very surface of the iceberg. I'm mixing two cliches there because it feels like there's a lot that can be done with this block. There's so much possibility. I can't wait to do a deep dive. But for the time being, that's all I've got time for. I hope you enjoyed this little video. I'm going to be doing much more experimentation over the next couple of days. But anyway, I'll catch you in the next one. See ya. And I do just want to say a huge thank you to Opisek for making this mod, because it's awesome that he's made it, but also an even bigger thank you for sending over a preview copy to me. I really do appreciate that. You didn't have to do that, but I seriously appreciate it. It's been fun to play with. And man, I'm excited.